First, union membership. Well, it might be falling like a stone, with only about 10% of private sector workers now paying the roughly $500 a year it costs to belong to a union. But the unions are still rolling in the cash, thanks to sweetheart deals fostered by Labor governments that mean lavish payments to unions. Payments from government, from super funds, and from various other funds designed to help workers, or so we're told, but often just helping the unions that exploit them. Now, typical is the $1 million plus payment from the Victorian government to a subsidiary of the Health Services Union for health worker training in order to deal with aggressive patients. As the Victorian anti-corruption watchdog has just found, the payment was made without a tender and against public service advice, with the heavy influence of the Premier's private office. Worse still, scarcely a quarter of the workers that were meant to be trained actually were, and the training that those got was poor quality anyway. But frankly, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Today, the Australian newspaper reveals that various funds set up to protect worker entitlements have paid more than $3 million a year on average over the past decade to unions affiliated with Labor. Now, these are funds that businesses are legally required to pay money into to ensure that workers get their entitlements to redundancy payments, leave entitlements, income protection, training, and so on, usually as a condition under an award or enterprise agreement. And they are run under union auspices. Some of these funds are massive. The one in the construction industry, as an example, holds over $2 billion. And typically, they pay management fees to unions. Then there's the payments that the industry super funds, union super funds, also make to unions every year, estimated at around $10 million plus. And these payments to the funds are likely to increase under changes that the government has in mind, supposedly, we're told, to protect so-called workers in insecure work, but in practical terms, to put more money into the pockets of the unions. Now, there are around 2 million Australian workers who are casuals, mostly because they prefer the higher hourly rate and the flexibility that casual work gives them. About 250,000 Australians are so-called gig workers, Uber drivers, for example. Again, mostly because it allows them to top up other income in their spare time. The government wants to turn most of these workers, though, into permanent part-timers, not casuals, purportedly to give them more protection, but mostly to give the unions more access to the workers. And if not, to create more funds their employers will have to pay into. Again, we're told to help the workers, but invariably, it helps the unions on the way through. Now, I'm not saying no good ever comes from any of these schemes or from unions, but let's have our eyes open here and have some transparency. What's happening with these schemes is that businesses are forced to pay money into funds, the funds pay money into the unions, and then the unions pay money to the Labor Party. Now, it's a racket, but I'm not surprised that you don't know much about it. Plenty of the media don't want to report it. Well, I have. There you go. Now you understand it as much as I do.